Alright, so now that you know some chords, let's try changing from one chord to another. I like to call this transitions, and if you've been playing some of these chords or trying to play to a song, you've probably noticed that that's kind of your Achilles heel, or the thing that slows you down. You're probably doing great strumming, and you're probably holding your chords great, but once you're changing from one chord to another, it seems like a really slow process. Well, guess what? It is for everybody. So, welcome to the club. Totally fine place to be. This is just part of the learning process, so you're totally fine. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a way to think about this that's going to get you where you want to get to as quickly as you possibly can without a bunch of heartache, okay? So, the idea of transitioning, there's a lot of math and that sort of thing that's going on in your head when you're doing this that you may not realize. I mean, you're having to move several fingers, you have to think about the fret, you have to think about the string, let alone what's happening strumming wise, and the song and the beat and lyrics and melody and everything else if you're trying to sing the song. So let's cut a bunch of stuff out, okay? What we're going to do right now is just worry about the left hand, or the fretting hand for you folks that are lefties out there. So look, we're just going to be worrying about the fretting hand today, and well, at least for this first part here. Okay, so what I want you to do, and let's start with, say, like a D and a G. That would be a great transition to work with, and you're going to be using that a lot, okay? So what I like to do is I like to break a song up into the specific chords, and then I like to say, well, what are the transitions, okay? So, say we had a chord progression that was, say, like C, G, D, like. Measures of D. And so our C chord and our G chord, remember we talked about in the basic chord lesson, we talked about looking at two chords to see if they're similar. And the C and the G, there's not much that's similar there. But going from the G to the D, you notice that this ring finger doesn't move, or doesn't have to move, okay? So little things like that are really important for you to remember. Okay, so the transitions that are happening here are a C to a G to a D, and a D to a C. So in this particular chord progression, there's three transitions: C, G, G, D, D, C. Okay, so that's exactly what I would practice. However, I wouldn't use my right hand, or I wouldn't use my strumming hand to do this. At first, once you know your chords, you need to be able to really commit them to memory, and you need to be able to do the transition quickly. So, forget about the strumming hand for a minute. In fact, you can rest it on your knee or your head or whatever you'd like. But you can just put it on the neck here like this. And what I want you to do is grab a C chord, okay, and then set up your G. Now, this may seem like a waste of time or step that you don't want to do, but I promise you, if you want to play, and you want to play well, and you want to play quickly, this is going to get you there as quickly as possible. I would not have created this video if I thought that this was a ridiculous or unneeded exercise, okay? So stick with me. I promise you this is going to help you. Okay, so the other thing you want to do is you want to think about kind of how you're setting these chords up. I like to set them up from the lowest note to the highest note. So if I was setting up a C chord, I typically set up one finger at a time. If you just go grabbing for the chord, however many fingers you're using, 3, 4 fingers at a time, chances are you're going to miss a couple, and then you're going to be holding on to that chord for dear life because you know it's right, and it ain't. So what I suggest that you do is set up a protocol or a way of doing things all the time. If you set a C chord up, set it up from the lowest note to the highest note. Later on, it'll look like this, and later on it'll look like that, okay, where you just looks like you're grabbing it, but you're still thinking about it in a systematic way. It's just happening so quick that it looks like it's one thing, okay? So go to set up your C, you do it like that every time. You go to set up your G, I like to do it from the lowest note up. Okay, at first you're going to have to think about all 4 fingers. But later on, it's going to be faster, and eventually you might be able to do it in one fell swoop, like you're just grabbing the chord like that. But I still think about it like building it whenever I'm playing this. Okay, so now that you got that basic idea down, what I want you to do is pick 2 chords, in this case here, the C and the G. And I've got my thumb way up here. It's because I've been playing a long time and I can still play like that. For you beginners, you probably should have your thumb a little bit lower because you're going to be able to grab this chord easier. So don't follow my lead there. Okay, so if I'm playing a C chord there, then I'm going to grab a G. And take your time. This is not a speed thing. This is an accuracy thing. Accuracy equals speed. Okay? You will get fast by playing accurately. So then just go back and forth between these 2. Back and forth. Okay? Then the G to the D. Okay? Notice that the middle finger, the ring finger, does not move. So for you, and I have students do this all the time, when they try this at first, they have a hard time doing it because that finger wants to lift up. But this is part of controlling your fingers. And being able to do this with your mind, it's your body, they're your fingers, you get to tell them what to do, they don't tell you what to do. And it may take a little time and a little energy, but do it slowly. Lift those fingers up slowly and say, I'm keeping that finger glued down, it's not moving, come heck or high water, it's not going to move. And that's what I want you to do. You may have to do it really slow at first. Then eventually you'll get nice and quick at it, and you'll have your G to D transition down. You may spend 15 minutes on it, but since this is the chord sequence that you're going to be using a million more times in your life, it might be a good idea to take some time with it, right? So really get it down good, okay? And then once that's down, try a D to a C. Nothing similar about those 2, but again, you just want to work that routine. Don't worry about strumming. Right now, let's just worry about the left hand, okay? Or the fretting hand, just back and forth. And obviously I'm playing this a lot faster than you will at first, most likely. That's okay, because I was right where you were at, where you got to practice things slow at first. Everybody is. No one gets a free ride when it comes to playing guitar. You got to practice, okay? Okay, so that is the basic transition technique. We're going to talk more about this in a little bit more detail further on in the program, but make sure you do this because it's really going to help a ton. Whenever you have a song that has chord changes, which is like every song, then make sure that you practice it this way until you get that routine down. Okay, we'll talk about more of this in future videos here, so keep going.